Hello and welcome to Don't Feed the Geeks, presented by the Long Island Comic Guys, the masters of the geekyverse. Well, welcome back, Geek Freaks. You're probably missing us an extra week. We are an episode behind here. I am TC, joined as always by JJ.
What up, guys? How are you?
And Toy Story.
What's up?
All right, look
Good
at that.
to be back.
Enthusiasm. So we have a really cool episode for you guys today. We're going to be talking to John Broglia and Neil Kleid about their book Savor. It's a trade paperback. It's a graphic novel for being published by Dark Horse Comics. Really cool book. We just recently read it. We won't go into what it's about now, but it's food. If you love food, if you love fighting, if you love comic books, definitely check it out. Make sure you listen to the full interview because those guys, speak about it better than we could. So,
and they were great to have on.
Yeah, they're
fun to talk to.
We've had John on the show before. John's a good friend of ours. We've known him before, but Neil was awesome. He had a lot of awesome things to say. Really, kind of insightful, and he gave us some things that we'd never heard about. So, make sure again to listen. But before we get into that, we're going to turn it over to Toy Story for the Geek Beat.
Let's do it. Not too much to report over the holidays. We got a couple cool things. So for all you Dexter fans out there who are eagerly awaiting Season 9, as me and TC are, they just announced that Clancy Brown is going to play the villain in the show.
It's interesting.
I was thinking about this. He's similar to Mark Hamill in that, actor turned voice actor. I don't know if you guys know, he's in tons of cartoons for voice acting.
Yeah, I do.
So he does so much stuff.
And it's so diverse what he does.
Yep.
Everything's
different.
to Star Wars to this to. Yeah. He's gone.
He was in that episode of The Mandalorian too, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't he in that prison scene?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone through.
He's a Kurgan.
So many spectrums of
Mr.
Krabs.
Is he really Mr. Krabs?
Yes, Mr. Krabs. Yes.
Wow.
For 20 years, he's Mr. Krabs. Yes.
Wow. Well, I guess he's got a constant gig. That's good.
Yeah,
good
right. He was in the Clone Wars, I think, and Rebels and stuff like that.
I think he did a lot of Justice League and Superman animated series. Was he Lex Luthor?
He may have been, actually.
I think he might have been the voice of Lex Luthor.
He's got that great voice.
I know.
He's
great voice actor and great regular actor.
Just,
so I'm excited to see this.
I just found this out a couple of days ago. He was 25 when he made the Highlander, when he was the Kurgan. I didn't know he was that young.
Really?
I thought he was older than that. Yeah, I love that movie. They're so good. He's one of the best movie villains ever, honestly. In my opinion.
That was fantastic.
He used to scare the crap out of me when I was a kid. There's not too many villains when I was a kid that I used to be scared the crap out of. That was definitely one.
For that movie, he was a psycho in that movie.
Yeah. I think he'll be the same in Dexter. I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, that's
Dexter
cool.
was always the season villains. Every season had a different villain.
Yeah.
So if he could come even close to what's his name, Trinity, John Lithgow.
John Lithgow was so good. John Lithgow was the best one. It was such.
Were you watching the show?
I think I got through the first season. I may have gotten through half the second, and I just lost interest.
Yeah.
I think you have to power through some of them.
If you get through four is amazing.
Yeah. I just
after the one with John Lithgow, you can actually stop watching it.
Mm-hmm. Read the Wikipedia summary and then watch the new season. Yeah, so really excited for that. But moving on to some Lego news for all you people like me who are out of room to keep buying stuff. Lego is going to be doing an Ultimate Collector Series Death Star later this year, and it's going to be 11,000 pieces, which is unbelievable.
Can you imagine? I can't picture what this is going to look like.
Oh my god!
What does 11,000 pieces look like?
It's got to be Death Star too, because it's got to have all those little jagged things.
I would imagine, and it's going to be. I would imagine it's going to be big.
I'm going to get it. I have nowhere to put it, as you guys can see, but I'll hold it.
Look, behind you, you've got the Millennium Falcon. At one point, that was the largest set.
Yeah, that's 7,000.
We're going to be almost doubling that. Well, a little less, but how big is this? Oh, I'm so excited.
I know.
But for $800,
that was $800, and that's
true.
Less pieces. Yeah,
true.
Not that was. No, that was totally worth it, but it's still expensive.
It's all worth it.
Is it going to be as intricate? It's probably a lot of the same pieces, though.
Yeah,
right?
so I don't know.
Is there going to be
an
an inside build?
Yeah, who knows? Hopefully, because the original one was the original Death Stars were just the outside.
Yeah, well, the second Death Star, the original second Death Star Lego was just the outside. You didn't see inside because it had a lot of those jagged edges, so you couldn't really do much with it. I'm hoping this somewhat breaks apart so you can get some innards like the first Death Star where you had, the sections you can.
Yeah, that one I remember.
Yeah. Oh, it's exciting.
I'm excited. Yeah. All right, moving on. A little bit of Michael Keaton news over the last couple weeks. There's been a little bit of
there's a
weird
lot of
stuff
back
going
and forth on this, so it's.
Does anybody know what's actually going on?
He's definitely going to be in Flashpoint.
Okay.
He's definitely going to be the key. I'm hearing so many different things. I'm hearing that he could be like the Batman Beyond version of Michael Keaton, and now I'm hearing like this Timothy Chalamet name getting thrown around for Terry McGinnis, but apparently he's not going to be like the Batman for like the whole DC universe. Some guy was like, no, he's going to be the Batman for this, and then they haven't said anything else. I don't think there's reason to believe anything that you're going to hear about this right now. It's just
so much hearsay.
It's just a mess, and DC, you can't really trust anything. Like, I'm sure if Michael Keaton's going to be great in his role, that doesn't mean I believe they're going to make a great movie. So it's just, I'm not going to believe in them until they give me a reason to, honestly. I'm sorry.
Fair enough.
DC universe.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's just, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So
yeah, there's a lot of DC's a whole other conversation right now.
I know.
But we're going to be talking about DC a little bit more right now because the Future State titles have begun to drop, correct?
Yep. So
did you pick up any?
I picked up a few of them. I got the Superman one. There's a Swamp Thing one. So there's a lot of like new appearances and like new versions of character. There's this new Wonder Woman. I believe her name's Yara Flor. So she's kind of in two books. There's like a death metal book where she cameos, and then there's a full version of her in like this Future State Wonder Woman, and they both came out today, Wednesday of last week, the 6th. So I don't know. And then there's the new Batman. There's the Lucius, not Lucius Fox. What's it, Tim Fox or
Tim or Terry or yeah.
I don't know. It's just I haven't really been reading a lot of DC titles. Excuse me. So
I don't think a lot of people have.
I don't know.
They haven't been able to deliver their books recently. Did you hear that whole debacle?
Yeah, I know a few people didn't get their books, but
yeah.
I'm really sad for what's going on right now at DC. I mean, I hope this helps. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I really don't know what to say. It's I may get around to reading them, but I'm not overly excited. I just kind of picked them up to stash them in case they're, worth money at one point. Mm-hmm. That's really the only reason I bought them.
Of course.
But, yeah, just please, DC, get it together. That's what I want to say. But before we get into our interview, there is one thing I want to talk about. We are going to end this with the review of the Wonder Woman movie, Wonder Woman 84, and we won't tease that until later on. But I do want to talk about something really cool. So Cobra Kai season 3 dropped on the 1st, and I found myself with plenty of time to watch the whole thing, and it was pretty good. So I won't say it's as good as season 2. I think season 2 was incredibly epic. I mean, season 1 was just so good, and season 2 followed it up really well. But this was so cool. It's not better than season 2, but it's really good. Like they introduce a lot more. You get this is a spoiler alert, so if you haven't watched it, skip like 5 minutes ahead here. But he goes back to Okinawa. He sees like the characters from those, like Chosen and Emiko, and there's even a surprise. This girl he saves during like the storm, she's like she shows up in some capacity, and Chosen shows him like some more like karate that he never learned from like Mr. Miyagi, which was pretty cool. And then you get Allie Mills. Elizabeth Shue's character from the original one, she's in the final episode, and she really brings it together where she kind of makes Daniel and Johnny finally see that she's like, there's two perspectives. There's your perspective, and then there's yours perspective, and then there's what really happened. So it was cool. So she kind of like made them face like what was really going on. And so this one was really like him trying to get the kid who got hurt, Miguel, kind of back on his feet and everything, and like kind of roles reverse a little bit. So, you know, Kreese, like the guy who's the villain, like really like steps it up. You get the weird part, and you know, Jeff's big into this show too. I was talking to him about it. He goes, there's a lot of really weird flashbacks from like Vietnam with Kreese, and it like really shows like how his character got to where he is. They were a little odd, but there's also this character, Terry Silva, who is from the third Karate Kid movie. So you see like a younger version of him in these flashbacks, and he calls somebody at the end, and you kind of think it's going to be Terry Silver. So the cool thing is, the best part about it is basically, you know, the people who are loyal to Johnny, you know, stick with Johnny, and then, you know, Kreese has his like loyal Cobra Kai, like evil kids, and then, you know, Ralph Macchio's character, Daniel LaRusso, he's training again kids. So Daniel and Johnny kind of team up their like dojos, so they're going to try and take on Kreese, but it looks like Kreese might be, you know, teaming up with Terry Silva. So it should be an epic, you know, confrontation for season 4. But
so I guess they're bringing everybody in from the movies.
What about seems that way. It seems.
What about the one? Wasn't there a girl Karate Kid?
So I heard there might even be. Yeah, that was actually, she's actually a huge actress. She's
yeah. I'm trying to remember her name.
I can't remember what her name is right now either, but
is she young?
No, Swanson something.
Oh yeah,
Elizabeth Swanson.
No, it's not Swanson though. It's
I thought of Ron Swanson when you said.
Yeah, I know. I shouldn't have said Swanson, but it sounds like that. Christy Swayson? No, that's somebody else. Gosh, it's the movie was The Next Karate Kid.
I've got it right here. It's Hilary Swank.
Yeah,
Hilary Swank.
Yeah.
That's funny, Swanson.
I mean,
is she coming back?
I don't know. Anything's possible. I mean, this show it's a huge show. It's taking on #1 again at Netflix.
Dude, smart as hell for them too to move from YouTube Red or whatever that was to Netflix.
Well, I don't think it was. I think YouTube was the only one who was interested at the time. I think
then it blew up, right?
Yeah, Netflix like wasn't interested, and like the first season, I was like, this is not just good. This is like it was like they took something which was like I don't know, and I don't know how other people shot this down. I guess it was like oh, like nobody cares about Johnny Lawrence, because it's basically about the kid, the bad kid from the first one, and they just made it like from his perspective, and it's just really well done. Anyone who hasn't watched it, I highly recommend.
I have to. It's been on my list for so long.
I mean, like this season, I'd probably give like an 8.0.
What about the last two, just for comparison?
So it's hard for me to say season 1. I don't remember it well enough. It's at least a 9. I would say season 2, maybe like a 9.2.
Wow,
do you know what's going to hit this out of the park? When you get Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith in this movie, in the show.
Well, I think
these two are in there.
I think that the executive producer, one of the executive producers, is actually Will Smith. So anything's possible.
There you go.
Watch.
Yeah. So we'll see. All right, but that's it. That's all I had. Go watch Cobra Kai if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen any of them, watch all 3 together.
Yeah, I might.
I'll catch up.
All right. So, but next we have our interview with John Broglia and Neil Kleid talking about Savor.
Nice.
All right, guys. Well, we have 2 very special guests with us today. We have John Broglia, a former guest of ours, and Neil Kleid joining us to talk about their new book, Savor. Guys, welcome to Don't Feed the Geeks. How's it going?
What's going on? Thanks for having us.
Hey, guys.
Nice.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
We're all right. We're excited to talk about this book. We were lucky enough. I think we all read it probably yesterday.
Yes, we did.
So just so you guys know, this is going to be dropped on Monday. So it'll be a few more people will have the opportunity to read it. So we are going to talk about it. There will be a couple spoilers, but we won't spoil the whole thing for anyone. But we will be talking about the book. Since we've already had John on and we don't care about his background story, Neil, what we kind of like to do for the first time someone's on our show is we kind of like to get their geek origin story. So before we get into talking about Savor, like what's your, Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, Clark Kent origin story?
So I was bit by a radioactive Jew. And No.
Okay.
That's great.
By the way, I'm Jewish, so I hope I haven't offended anyone. No, man. So I've been a geek all my life. I've been reading comics since I was 9. My dad used to come home every Friday with a bag of random crap he got off a rack somewhere, just to kind of basically say, "Read this, leave me alone." And my brother and I, we collected, we rode bikes to the local store. I was drawing comics or trying to draw comics since I was a kid. I went into Marvel when I was 12, so with a packet of badly drawn pinups. And I started off wanting to be an artist, actually. So I can draw, but I'm nowhere near like John's caliber. And when I moved to New York in '99, I had a friend who was an editor over at DC, and I walked up to him I walked into the office, he showed me around, and I basically showed him all my samples, and he looked it up and said, "You are not a good artist." He said, "Look, you need anatomy work, and there's a lot that you need to kind of learn." And I'm honestly self-taught. I taught myself by taking old Ninja Turtle comics and trying to draw them. Like, hey, the comics here, me drawing here. And my samples weren't great, but he said, "Your storytelling is top-notch, so maybe you should be a writer." So I really kind of did a hard pivot and started to learn how to write comics. I studied scripts, studied, the masterworks, Alan Moore, all the way to Spiegelman, to Will Eisner, just trying to figure out how everybody writes comics, for different genres, for different styles of comics, superhero, indies, war, romance, everything. And just started pitching, basically. And I started off with mini comics. What I tell people is my road through comics was the long, hard path. I started in minis, then I went to web comics. After that, I tried to pitch some one-shots and miniseries, and I went from indies to selling my first superhero comic in 2006. I did an X-Men Unlimited comic with Mike Oming, who introduced John and I, by the way. And from there, it's just been one hard road after the other, just trying to stay in the game. Big Will Eisner fan. Still love superhero comics. I grew up reading every Green Lantern comic I could get my hands on. Love Star Wars. Have written for StarWars.com.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've got some articles up there.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, my kids are born geeks. I mean, I'm sitting here honestly with and the dark saber and just kind of like everything. So
That's funny.
we are a geek family. We love comics, we love comic movies, we love graphic novels, everything, video games. So that's me.
That's the way to do it. Awesome.
Hell yeah.
So I did a little research on you last night, and I ordered it last night.
Not in a creepy way.
No.
Totally in a creepy way.
One of your books, Brownsville, looks really cool.
Thanks, yeah.
I'm excited about that. I actually ordered it from Amazon last night, so I'm hoping to get that. But I'm looking forward to reading that book.
Cool, thanks. I hope you like it. Yeah, Brownsville was one of my first. Did a lot of research. It's, for those who don't know, it's the story of Murder Incorporated, the Jewish mob in the 1930s. Besides being a comics geek, I'm actually a really big mob geek. I've seen every mob movie ever made, read a bunch of books, really have just read history cover to cover. But strangely, I didn't know much about the Jewish mafia. I came in through obviously like The Godfather, Goodfellas. That's kind of what got me excited about it. And my dad kept pushing me to watch. I don't know if you guys have seen it, Once Upon a Time in America, the old Sergio Leone movie.
Yeah,
it's 4 hours. It's fog.
it's amazing.
But it's amazing. De Niro, James Woods, and the music is fantastic. And that kind of got me interested to learn a little bit more about like organized crime from my heritage, which I didn't know too much other than some like random names, right? Like Buckman Siegel and Meyer Lansky. And having moved to New York, like there's a lot of history here, right? There's a lot of history in Brooklyn and in Queens and even in Manhattan itself. So that really kind of got me inspired to start reading a lot about it. And I found this great sort of dichotomy between these two low-level gunmen who came into the mob at the same time and really, not to spoil the story, but I mean, it's part of the pitch. It's part of the solicitation. they basically came in at the same time from different routes. One was like really well off, and one came in from the streets. They rose in the ranks and then ended up really ratting everybody out. So it's a fantastic story. The book is whatever. I can't really be biased about the book, but the story itself that the book is based on is really fascinating. And Jake Allen, who drew it, was also fantastic to work with.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I may have to check that out too. It does sound very interesting.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. I feel like it's almost impossible to be like a comic book fan and not like a history fan at the same time.
Yeah.
I just feel like they're so like closely tied together, like all that, history of like, when you really read comic books, especially if you get into the old ones, I mean, like you're reading history as it's being told because, you're learning about like stuff like that happened in like the 30s, 40s, 60s that's happening like in real life in those comic books, but it's like history. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, look, for a guy like me, and I don't want to speak for John or anyone else, but like when you read something that has roots in something that happened, right? Something that connects and is real, right? Those stories are obviously they resonate,
Yeah.
So, you read even like some of the superhero comics, and you think about superhero comics, and I know there's a large debate. Keep politics out of comics. Politics have always been in comics. Like ever since Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, started off at Marvel in the 60s, there's always been politics. Even before that with Captain America, right? So there's always something, when a story resonates and really makes you think and makes you believe and makes you, inspires you, it usually has some relevance to something that's going on, whether it's current events, whether it's historical events. To me, that makes a fantastic story. It drives emotion. It makes you think. It makes you feel, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Well said. All right, so let's actually talk about this book then. So obviously this really happened, and you guys have some resonance with this story, Savor. So how did you guys fall upon this island and get into this cookfighting scene?
Just to clarify, it's not really happened. It's a fictional story.
I'm just kidding.
John, I feel like I've been talking, so maybe you want to kick us off.
This question's geared more towards Neil anyway, but I'll speak for Neil. I'm going to be Neil. Neil developed this story. Neil has one of his other passions he didn't mention just now is food and cooking. He loves to. You call yourself an amateur chef? I don't think so. I'm an
amateur eater. No, I'm a professional eater and an amateur chef. Yeah.
But Neil has a passion for cooking and obviously making comics, and he loves both. And he just mushed them together into such a great recipe for this book. I'm not much of a cook. I love to eat. So when I read the script, I was extremely hungry. And I was like, this is great. So I get to draw and I'm starving. I was like, and I get to,
I'm definitely going to try some of these recipes out.
Oh, no, you have to. You have to.
Just again, remember, I'm a writer first. No, look, I mean, the book's got a ton of different influences. I've not been very shy about saying that I've been writing dramatic books for a long time. Brownsville being one of them. I wrote a book called The Big Con, which was a dramatic book. Everything's been kind of from the point of view. Legacy is kind of a running theme in a lot of the books that I write, but I've always written it from honestly the point of view of like a son, thinking about like legacy from son to father, right? So if you look at when you read Brownsville, you'll see that there's a big undercurrent of fathers and sons there. Big Con is the same way. Even some of the other superhero stuff that I've written, their legacy is very important. Right. One of the very first things I actually wrote was a really shitty 5-page Green Lantern Flash story, like a prose story that was just about like the various legacies of the hero. But now, I mean, I wrote that when I was young and single and full of shit and vinegar. And now I'm not. Now I'm older and I have a family and I have kids of my own. And legacy means something different to me. Right. So the books that I've written and the books that I'm pitching lately over the last couple of years have really shifted from being that sort of like introspective, who am I in relation to everything else, and more about like, who am I as a father and what is it like being a father, right? And Savor specifically was written for my daughter, who is, of everyone in the family, the most excited about reading graphic novels. She really took to them and has like a nice little collection. She reads like Raina Telgemeier and all those the Babysitters Clubs, all that kind of vein. And she is always hungry for more of it. She always wants more of it. And I've never really written an adventure story that she could read. Everything that I've written has either been like mired in superhero continuity or has been like adult drama that, my parents were embarrassed to read because I'm not a person. And I really wanted to write something that she could read. So yeah, that's kind of where that came from. And I knew John.
That was my appeal for jumping on this book. I remember Neil had sent me just a quick snippet of a few different stories he had in development, and he was like, choose one, because we really wanted to work together. And immediately Savor jumped off the screen to me. And the biggest appeal was getting, like he just said, to do something that my daughters can read. Everything I've done prior to this, same as he just said, it's not content that's okay for them to read now at 8 or 5 years old. Zombie Sama wasn't gonna. Complex and all these different genres I've been playing in have been more crime and more violent, and this was something, and it's also been male character driven, and I've wanted to do something with a woman lead, with a young woman lead, and he supplied it, and I jumped all over it because I want something that a character that my daughters can look up to, and that they can be proud of their dad for being a part of, and we got to do this.
And what was great about it also is that we talk about Geek, Geek origin story. Like a lot of our, or at least mine and some of John's, because I know in a lot of the fashion and a lot about the world building, a lot of our influences are really poured into the story, right? So it's not just about my daughter. It's not just that, hey, fat guy loves food, let's write an adventure story about it.
That's not how I said it.
What?
That's not how I said it, Neil. I didn't say it like that.
No. I'm saying that even beyond that, there are things that I, have been reading or been exposed to over the last couple of years that I'm just like, oh, I really want to write a video game style story, right? Like something that's like inspired by like that, like beat the boss level video game, and like Legend of Zelda. That's one of my go-tos, and that is definitely in the book. Moana, right before I wrote it, honestly, like I had been blown away by Moana.
Yeah.
Like we love the movie here at the house, and
same here.
Yeah, and I didn't want to really like rip off what they did, but I loved just the island setting and just the lifestyle, and one of the things that we don't really talk about is that we went out and spoke to this guy Carl Shinyama, who was our culture consultant on the book, and he really helped me as I wrote the story, just kind of like look over everything I did and make sure that it really feels authentic, not just the language, not just the culture, but also the food and a lot of the mythology, right? And actually, one of the interesting things is that some of that changed, right? Because we actually started with saying like, hey, let's set this on a real island, let's set this on like maybe Hawaii or what have you, and as I kind of started to think about it, I realized I wanted to give John and myself the room to really build something of our own and build something that really feels like, he said it earlier, a mashup or a hybrid or like a recipe or a stew of, various influences from the two of us kind of simmering in this great book.
Wow. And that's what I loved about this, because, when you're reading the book, you get the feel that you're on an island. There's no cars, there's no technology. Even the boats, the ships, they're the old Japanese style, type of ships where you feel like you're in the book, and it's totally. And that's what I loved about this. And being a woman, hero or girl hero, it was great. And I don't have daughters; I got 2 little boys, and one day I hope they read this, when they're old enough to read a book like this.
So you guys will appreciate this. Actually, the whole people have been asking us lately about like the whole technology thing, what have you. But nobody's talked to us about the fact that there are no cars on the island, and that could be perfectly fucking honest with you, is based off Fire Island. Like
I was gonna say that reminded me of Fire Island.
That's actually what I thought of. That's actually
when I was a kid, not a kid, when I was after college, when I was younger, pre-children, I used to go to Fire Island a lot, like to the beach and just kind of hang out and rent the house and what have you. And I loved the fact that it felt like you couldn't tell that New York was like half an hour away, right?
Yeah.
You're basically in this remote locale where it feels like, you could be halfway around the world. And to me, that felt really kind of calming and really kind of austere. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to give that sense to the island as well, to Earth's Oven, the island that John and I created, where there are no cars. There's one airport, which we haven't even put on our map. The airport's not on the map, which I kind of love.
And there's one road that goes around.
One road. Then you basically have to get everywhere by boat or foot, and there's no cell service. So that to me kind of feels like Mecca, right? It feels kind of like a place that I want to go and just kind of like shut down and eat.
Yeah, escape. Hell yeah.
Give
me the food.
That great island feel, and I love how like there was like mashups, like all the restaurants weren't just like one kind of thing. It had like this like
flares right to them.
Yeah, like this mashup of all this different type of food was a fusion. It was like every restaurant was like a fusion.
It was so cool to read.
You dictated like what that restaurant did, in a little blurb on the
book. Yeah, the little blurbs for each place were awesome.
Yeah. And that was very ingenious. I love those type of small details.
It's funny because like I love to go out to eat. Well, I did love to go out to eat. But I love exploring different restaurants and I've noticed over the last couple of years, especially in New York and a lot of large urban centers, there is that kind of gearing towards like, well, we're going to take like Japanese and then we're going to take matzo balls and we're going to put them together and like let's see what that looks like. And you see it a lot in kosher cuisine as well. Kosher cuisine is very much like trying to take what non-kosher cuisine does and really give a kosher spin to it, right?
Yeah. And
there's, mashup isn't the right word. Fusion is probably the best word for it. But there's a lot of that happens. And whether chefs out there love it or hate it, and I know there are some that are very much about the purity of like French cuisine or the purity of, of island cuisine or what have you, it's happening, right? There's a lot of this like, hey, let's see what barbecue looks like in Montana, or well, that's not true. Montana barbecue.
Italy.
Let's see what like barbecue looks like in Israel, right? So like, there's a lot of that happening globally, and I really felt like this place is the place where you go to explore like the limits of what you can do with food. Have you guys ever read Hicksville, the graphic novel Hicksville by Dylan Horrocks?
No.
So if you get a chance, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite graphic novels. It's set in New Zealand, and it's about a place where basically where there's a library there, and it's a place where cartoonists go to do their epic masterwork that never gets published. Like one or a few copies in this library. It's never been published, but it's there. So like there's like Wally Wood did books that are there, and Picasso did a comic, and like there's more to the graphic novel. It's about a lot more than that. But what's fascinating is that like how sacred it is. There's a sacred library where cartoonists basically go, and this is a place they go to do a pilgrimage and they create something. And the only copy of this book that they've created lives in this library. And this library is like stocked with like every comic ever made, like old school action comics.
That's awesome.
So it's a great book. But what I loved about it was this just a place for cartoonists and folks who are with comics who are like, they make the pilgrimage, they go to Hicksville, they know about it, and it's sacred, right? And so that, to me, is what our island is for chefs. It's this place where if you are a chef worth your salt in the world, you have been to Earth's Oven at some point and you have tried everything. You've tried the food, you've tried to cook new food, you've tried to experiment, you fail, you succeed. This is the place to go, and whether you're like a master chef or whether you are, somebody new to a kitchen, you go here because you love to cook and you love food. And that is kind of the vibe I wanted to get out of it. And I also wanted to give the sense that it's also a little touristy. There are people there who know that like some, it's an island. We all want to kind of go hang out on an island, what have you. When I go on, to a resort, I'm going to sit out in the sun and eat and drink, right? And kind of the best place in the world to do it. So it's kind of got both. But again, very austere, right? Very much like, if you're coming here, you know the rules, stick to them.
Yeah.
It was funny that there was a lot of attention to detail. I know JJ was pointing this out to me earlier, how you had fun with like the names of like, everyone sounds like a food, like it's like you got coriander, but even like your attention to detail with like, plating, like, me and my wife, we watch all these cooking shows and like someone could lose on the plating and like, you basically have a mission where you have to be good at plating to get past like this ball. I think that was like the first ball, something like that. But I was like, I thought that was really clever. It was fun.
Again, that's a lot of just influences. Look, I watch a lot of Food Network. I watch Top Chef, right? And like some of that stuff. And I was telling John, like I sit here with a notebook, and as I'm watching TV, I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll put that down. Right? There's like a point in the book where Corey and Savor are walking, the two main characters, and it's like a 2-page sequence where Corey, the other warrior, is just talking about food, right? She's just talking about things that she's seen and things that she's eaten. And a lot of that stuff is literally stuff that I've just seen on television. And I'm like, oh, what'd she eat? That sounds interesting. I'm going to put that in. And then some of it is stuff that like I've experienced. She talks about one of the great bits in there is it's actually two. One is she talks about cholent, which is like a Jewish Yiddish stew, and like I make that like twice a month, right? And I've actually won a cooking contest with my cholent, right? So like to me that was important to get in there, and I wanted to make sure that it was there because it inspires me, and I wanted other people to be like, "What the fuck is cholent?" Like I'm gonna go,
That was basically me throughout this entire book. So I had a reference. I had to Google so much stuff,
right?
so many terms, so much of the food. I love to eat. You throw food in front of me, but I just didn't. I'm not much of a chef or a cook at all. So there was like plating, and he writes plating in the script. So I'm like, okay, I have to. What the hell is that? So I'm googling like all this stuff, but it's a learning experience. The cartoonists, we have to fake it so much.
And here's what I love about artists. Not once did he email me and say, "What is plating?"
He was my friend. That's it.
Not once did I get a call from John and is like, "What's this word here that you're talking about?" And I'm like, "I can easily send you 15 videos or whatever." Nope, just.
I loved it. I got to the one panel where they made spam mushubi, and I made spam and rice today because I was like, I wanted it last night. I was like, you know what? I have spam in my closet. I'm going to cook it with some rice, and that's what I had for lunch today.
Nice.
Yeah, that was something I had to reference.
Yeah, but that's like a very like island food.
It is
very Polynesian thing to eat.
I'm former military. I was in the Navy. I've been to so many countries in the Southeast Asia. That's what we ate, especially like the Philippines and Hawaii. I mean, that's what they eat out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And I love it. But yeah, it's very funny.
No, but again, like I say, like it's a lot of just like and there's a lot of Polynesian, like Pacific Island references in there. And again, Carl was fantastic with that. But there's again a lot of even that sequence. One of the things that I want to say, you talk about Moana, you talk about video games. Like there's like a panel where they basically are talking about the plot of Ratatouille.
Yes,
like one of my favorite movies, right? And by the way, Patton Oswalt, if you are out there, I will send you a copy of the book. Love the movie.
That's great.
So like it's definitely when you look at the sort of the breadth and width of what food is to a lot of different people, that is what we wanted this book to be. And if John and I are lucky enough to do more, the second book, the third book will have even more references, things that are inspiring us now, things that are that are out there. So
there's definitely more stories that I like how it left it very open-ended, so we can definitely there's room to find out about a lot more people. So I know you said you kind of gave John like his choice of what you wanted him to work on. So did you have any like reservations before you gave this to John or anything like that? Because the thing I love about John is he has a very like golden age style.
Yeah,
and, we spoke about this a lot, and I was like, I think it works really well with your story. And were you like, did you know his work? Did you feel like the jive right away? Or
yeah, but the thing I hate about John, I was like, let's talk about him. He's off here to this. Actually, it's this way.
I forgot he was here.
No, honestly, whenever you start working, or as a writer, when you start a collaboration, a co-authorship with an artist, you never really know what somebody's going to love, right? Especially because I come from comics from one way and John comes from comics from another way. And I don't know what, at the time when we had just met, I wasn't sure what his influences were. And he probably wasn't sure, what kind of writer I was, other than reading some of the stuff that I had done. And so we really met, here's the dating story. John and I met because we both did a short story for Where We Live, which is the Image Comics anthology for the Las Vegas, to benefit the Las Vegas shooting. And John and I didn't know each other, but we both did separate stories on the book. And I had been looking for somebody to do some stuff with. And we both know Mike Oeming. John knows Mike from way back. And Mike and I actually did an X-Men story. So we've known each other for years too. And I reached out to Mike and I'm like, do you know anybody right now who's kind of available? And he said, hey, I know you're going to this Where We Live signing. You should sit down and talk to John. He's really great. You guys would get along really well. And so I think we did. We spent most of that signing we were sitting next to each other at the signing, which was, I think.
Yeah, it was love at first sight.
Yeah.
It was definitely.
And we really kind of spent the night talking, and I basically said to him, like, I'll just send you some shit. Yeah. And I really looked, and I don't even remember what I sent you, but it was like 4 or 5 springboards or short pitches from different genres. There was Savor. There probably was like some dramatic techno crap that I had written up that nobody wants to buy.
I don't even remember either anymore.
Yeah.
So long ago. It takes so long to put these books out.
Exactly. And
it took a long road.
It basically was like, look, here are 4 very different things.
Yeah.
That I think your style could fit. Pick one. And Savor was the one.
Yeah, the smart way to go is to obviously, try and kind of take a look at the artist's style and art, like you were saying, and DC, and gear whatever stories you might have towards that style, because we know, and I understand that my style is not going to work with any type of story. It could to a degree, but it's gonna benefit. It's gonna have its strengths in certain genres and certain stuff. So this popped off the page for me, and I remember even Mike Oeming asked me after the fact, after Neil and I spoke, and I told Neil, I was like, yeah, I want to do Savor. I was like, this looks awesome. Mike had emailed me or called me up and said, which one did you pick? And I said, I picked Savor, and he was like, that's the one I would have picked. He goes, that one jumped off the page for me too, because Mike and I have similarities in our tastes and style. So it was cool. I was like,
the art is fantastic.
Yeah. Damn it. I could have had you Oeming on the book.
You could have got Mike. You could have got Mike Oeming, and you blew it.
Yeah.
It's funny, John. I actually remember you working on this like CradleCon, like 2 CradleCons ago.
It takes so long.
Wow.
I saw somebody post recently. They said without saying, I think it was Chris Sheehan, who does work for Bolt and stuff like that. I think he might have been him that posted it, but he said, without saying that you're a comic book artist, post something that says you're a comic book artist. And somebody posted and said, I'm so excited to finally see, something I worked on 2 years ago come out. It was perfect. It was like the perfect example of you work on things and it takes so long to get it done, and then finally to come out, that you moved on to 2 or 3 projects, and it's like, oh yes, this is finally coming out. Like, yes.
Oh, I remember I did that.
You guys must be so happy it's out though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had it was a rough year. I mean, the book was supposed to be out in August. I was actually going to San Diego to promote it a little bit, and obviously
didn't go.
That didn't happen.
Why didn't you go? What the hell?
It's not beautiful this time of year. So we thought the book was going to come out in August, and then even before San Diego got moved, the book was pushed because Diamond shut down, right? So John and we've been working on this book at this point for like
a little over a year
and 3 quarters, and John, I think you were done with you were finished.
Right before that pencils down call that went across the industry, I think I put that last page in like the day before. It was literally the day before.
I think we had all emailed John like this like round of congratulatory emails, like myself, John, and Frank, our colorist, and the editor, right, Brett. We all were like, like series wrap, John Broglia, right? And then the next email we got was like, hey, we should stop working on the book.
Have you ever seen that scene in Ace Ventura when he's crying? He's hugging in the bathroom on the floor. That was pretty much me and Neil.
Put the book in the garbage with the fire burning.
But it was also like really interesting because it was not like, hey, we're going to put the book on hold for 2 months and then, see. It was literally just like, stop working. Like, you guys just hang out, stop working on
That's
the book.
great to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, and
I don't know what's going to happen.
And we're both sending these like passive aggressive, like, so stop working for like a week or
forever.
Tell us what's kind of happening. And there was just this like, we'll let you know. And we're just shooting each other these emails like, what the fuck, And Frank, to his credit, was like, I'm going to finish. Like, I'm going to keep working. I'm just going to finish the book. And I'm like,
yeah, thank God he did that.
Yeah, thank God he kept moving. And I lettered it. So I'm like, all right, at least we'll have the book done. And I think we had like 2 or 3 back, like, what are we going to do in the case that they drop the book emails, right? Like, what should we kickstart it? Would somebody else buy this? And I think John, to his internal optimism, was like, well, the book is done, so somebody's going to just take us off. I'm like, yeah, that's how comics work. Someone will just take it off.
I try to be a little hopeful. You have to be. You have to. There's got to be some kind of naive
someone who's optimistic
mindset, some naivete, because this industry could very easily, as much as we all love it, and it's my heart and soul is making comics, and I love it more than anything. I couldn't possibly ever see myself not participating in a comic somehow and or creating somehow. But it can, like Jack Kirby has said, and then many have said before, it could destroy you. Like I met Will Eisner, who's one of my heroes as well. I met him a year before he passed at San Diego Comic-Con. I actually sat down outside of the Eisners. I saw him sitting with his wife by himself, and I sat down with him, and I chatted with him. I was like, I couldn't even believe this was happening. It's like, and I remember saying to him that he's like a big influence as to why I make comics, and he said, "I'm sorry." He literally said, "Sorry to hear that." You're just understanding that it's
my favorite. So I know there's the whole Jack Kirby comics will break your heart. My favorite comparison is, and I've used this a couple times, is comics is like your little brother that keeps throwing that football at your groin, and you're like, I love that kid, but fuck, stop throwing the football. Right?
Yeah. Next year I'll catch it. I'll finally catch this thing.
Oh,
but
God.
yeah, no, it's true though. But
yeah,
it's worth it. It's all worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it. Look, in the end, I think we sat on our heels for less than a month, maybe. It wasn't too long. And
I think it was only like a couple of weeks. I think the turnaround was pretty quick from them. Dark Horse was great. They were great.
And Dark Horse has been great. Like, they've been communicative. They've been helpful. They've helped promote the book. The production team has been top notch. And like, I have no complaints about Dark Horse. I think it was just, we were all kind of like, as an industry, trying to figure out like what's
the whole world was kind of like that, and the whole world was going through it in some way or another. So for us, this was our taste of it in our industry, and we were freaking out. we were freaking out.
We were, but we got back on track. They rescheduled it, and it's here.
That's great. And I know we don't have Frank here, but I mean, he's getting knocked out of the park with the coloring on this book.
Oh my God!
Like, it's amazing, the coloring.
It jumps out at you so much.
It just comes right. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, Frank's fantastic. Frank and I worked together on a book for Comixology / Monkey Brain when they were around, called Kings and Canvas. It was an ongoing series until it stopped being an ongoing series, and it was a book about it's like Game of Thrones meets Rocky. It's kind of a cool like boxing medieval kind of thing. And Jake, who did Brownsville, actually drew it. Jake Allen drew it, and Frank colored it. And the pages were just, they popped at you. They were really, really, there was so much depth behind the work Frank did to it. And when, I partnered with John and we were like, who's gonna color this thing? I really,
Neil brought him in, and I'm extremely. I have been burned in the past by colorists. Like colorists don't get enough credit. They don't get enough credit. They can literally make or break the art in a book. Mm-hmm. I don't care how well you draw. If the colorist comes in and he doesn't do so fantastic of a job, he could destroy the art. And also on the other end, you could be a mediocre artist, and the colorist can come in and their art is phenomenal on their end, and they can save a book. They can absolutely save a book. So I'm always very picky now. After years of experience, I'm very picky about who comes in. So whenever I'm introduced to a colorist, I'm like standoffish until I see a few things. And Frank really did. He came through on this book. He really did such an excellent job. He made me look good. If you can make me look good, then
so Frank's
number one in my book. Yeah.
It's great. It's just I'm very happy with this book. I want more. So
there's also a holiday special, right?
What was that?
There's also a holiday special as well, right?
Yeah. So that was basically me sitting around saying I want to write more Savor, and trying to figure out ways to promote this, and figuring out like the best way to promote a comic book is by giving somebody a free comic book or free comic. And we obviously couldn't print anything and get it out in time. But as sort of the holidays were coming up, I think it was like a month before, like I said, I'm a Star Wars guy, and they were talking about, like, as they do every year, the Star Wars holiday special.
We did a review of it.
I'll just watch that for the
I mean, it ain't great, but you gotta love it, right? And kind of rolling around, and also Disney Plus put out the Lego version, which I really liked.
That wasn't bad.
Yeah,
that was cool. Yeah.
Which was great. And so I just kind of sat there and I'm like, why can't we do a holiday special? Like, and I think the best thing that I love about it is that we did a holiday special for a book that hadn't come out yet, right? It's like doing a Batman holiday special before Detective Comics 20, before the issue comes out, right?
I mean, it worked though. It was pretty clever.
Yeah, thanks. And oh, what?
I said I think for me it set the tone to the book because I read that before the book. So going into this, like I didn't know what the book was, what Savor was going to be about. But reading that, and then seeing the snow was actually mashed potatoes, you're like, what? And reading the novel, then the graphic novel, it just married the two perfectly.
So there were literally, I gotta say, 10 to 12 emails that went back and forth between John, Frank, and myself about those damn mashed potatoes. Is it
very serious conversations about
mashed potatoes? Is it too white for mashed potatoes? Does it look like mashed potatoes?
Is it lumpy enough?
Is the texture correct?
Do we want whipped? Do we want lump? What do we want?
Should there be chives?
What's the consistency?
But yeah, no, it was fun, and we were going to do it as the standalone thing. And when I wrote it originally, that's what it was. It was just this fun 3-page, and at the end, it was going to either be like the cast, going Happy Holidays, or a recipe, which we did. And I think as I was writing it, and I don't know, John, if it was your idea or my idea, it just became like, well, why this should be set like before page 1.
That was all you, Neil, and I like that. I like that you did that. That was like one of my favorite parts of it. That it led directly into that opening page of the graphic novel. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, no, and it was fun. It was, we emailed Dark Horse and we're like, we've got this kind of stupid idea to do a holiday special for a book that hasn't come out yet. What do you think? And their first reaction was, do we need to do anything? And we're like, no.
It's going to cost us.
It's all us. We'll handle everything. And they were really
sounds great then.
Yeah, they were like,
go right ahead.
And they actually were super helpful. They got us an exclusive with Screen Rant. They put out the comic for us, and they announced it there. And then They hosted it on the site, and people seem to like it, so we're happy.
Yeah, it was funny, Neil. I was actually, I don't even think I told you this, but right before you came to me and said, let's do this, let's do a holiday special, I was actually going to email you about drawing, just to draw one. I didn't know how far we wanted to go, but just drawing a holiday card.
Right.
I had done it last year with Zombie Summer. I just done kind of like a little digital card. So I was like, oh, let's do that with all the Savor characters, where they're, you know, kind of just celebrating the holiday in one image. Thank God you beat me to that, because it turned into this nice little story that was.
John. No, and I mean that's kind of what it was. It really was like, look, I do also a holiday card every year, but it's usually like me and my family and what have you. But
yeah, it was hilarious. I love it.
But I wanted, you know, I figured this will be like our version of a holiday card, but it's really a comic, and who doesn't want a free 3-page comic, right?
Yeah. Whose recipe is that at the end? Like, was that one of yours? That was one of yours.
So it's mine. It's based off recipes that I actually have seen that mashed potato croquette out there in the wild, probably on Food Network. And I actually changed a little bit of it. I edited some of it so that it's actually a family mashed potato recipe. So the recipe for the potatoes itself is my own. And then the croquette aspect of how to make the croquettes is somebody else's. So I kind of, again, mashed potatoes. I mashed the mashed potato recipe together. Yeah.
Just to reiterate, every single recipe, none of it's me. None of it's me. I have no recipes. They are all Neil.
I didn't see Kraft mac and cheese in there, so
no Kraft mac and cheese, which my kids appreciate. But that's
so the funny thing about the recipe that's actually in the book, which again is also, it's my burger recipe plus a Lau Lau recipe that I had seen somewhere else, which is a Polynesian dish. It's actually the two of them sort of married. But the funny thing is, when I was actually reading the book last night, I realized that I had put, and I've actually never made it, by the way. I've never actually made it. The croquettes I have, but that one I haven't. I realized that I have pork belly in it. And because I was posting about it on my Facebook page and Twitter page and whenever I was posting an image of it, and I'm like, everybody knows me knows that I keep kosher. And I have a recipe in my book with pork belly in it, which is interesting because I mean, I must have realized that when I wrote it, and was just like, fuck it, who cares, right? But what's great about it is that we actually, here at the house, we do a lot of recipes that we see out in the world. One of the big ones that I always say is that we do a cubano, which is like a Cuban sandwich, but it's kosher. And it's basically, you know, if you make a Cuban sandwich, it's, what is it, ham and pork, right? I obviously can't do either of those because I keep kosher. So we have to, my wife and I spend a long time trying to figure out like what would be the best substitute for both of those. And so I figured for this recipe, I can do the same, right?
Yeah,
why not?
I'm sure there's a substitute for anything.
Yeah, there's gotta be.
So when is the cookbook coming out for this book? Like, are you going to have a cookbook for everything that was in the book so far?
Well, let's see how book 1 does, and then let's try to do book 2, and then we'll see how we go from there. I'm not going to do a cookbook unless Dark Horse is like, you know, maybe we should do a cookbook.
I was about to one up that. I was going to ask when the food truck is coming out.
Ooh, there you go.
When are you opening up the food truck?
Well, John, when you're ready to paint it up all pretty with like,
that's it. I'll draw on it and eat from it. That's it.
Silver and like a wizard on the side of it with like a.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I haven't seen a comic book cookbook, so
there's got to be some out there.
There are. I mean, I know that there are some indie cookbooks out there. Like you see some of like the indie alt scene. There have been people who have done like mini comics and zines that are like illustrated cookbooks. I've often said that there should be, you know, if you're on social media or if you're talking to other comic book creators, we all eat, we all drink, and you know, around the holidays, you'll see a lot of people like around Christmas time or around Easter, or Passover, or what have you. You know, everybody's posting. They're like, I just made latkes, or I just made, you know, pano or whatever. We all love to eat, you know, and some of us cook and some of us don't. And I've always felt like if you got enough of us together and had us each come up with a recipe and then got, you know, a bunch of like amazing artists to illustrate like an image for each page or something.
That'd be pretty cool.
I think it'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, John was doing the whole Feast of the Seven Fishes. I saw him. He posted each fish he did for Christmas Eve. It was great.
Yeah, no, hey, I come from we're Italian, so
Yeah, me too. It's amazing.
Food brings everybody together.
Yeah.
And that goes for every culture on the planet.
Yeah,
That's one thing that's great about food. And that's what
It's international
works well with
language.
our book. Yeah, that's what works well with our book. Is that no matter what everybody's differences are, and that's why I love one of my favorite shows was always Parts Unknown, Anthony Bourdain's show. And it showed you that no matter where he went in the world, when everybody sat down together at a table to eat, they were one people. Like it was like you could sit down at that table and just chat and converse and over a good plate of food and a great drink and get along. And that food brings everybody together. It really does.
Yep.
Well said.
By the way, the last person to have a food-based comic/graphic novel at Dark Horse, Anthony Bourdain.
Yes, for sure. And I have it. I actually have it on my shelf.
Oh, that's
actually,
awesome.
I'm a big fan.
Hungry Ghosts. Right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So what's up next for you two guys?
John,
Go ahead. No,
John's going to sleep for a while.
I haven't slept all week, so I'm waiting.
None of us have slept all week. So look, in terms of Savor, we definitely would like to do more. There is a loose plot out there for the second book that I've kind of written. Basically, the way I like to think about it is that this book is like Savor: A New Hope, right? It's my episode 4, and then there's episodes 5 and 6 out there that is kind of based off. And then one day John and I can go back and do like episodes 1 through 3 and maybe down the road some more. But there's a whole world out there that we've just sort of seen the tip of the iceberg on, and we'd love to do more. It really kind of depends on people who read the book and people talk about the book and ask about the book, and sales are any comic book sales have to sort of warrant it, right? And whether it's at Dark Horse, whether it's somewhere else, John and I definitely, and Frank as well. I don't want to leave Frank out. We definitely are invested in this story and these characters, and we'd love to see more. But other than that, we're cooking something else up.
Ooh, well said.
Yeah, there was definitely there's so many characters, even the villains. I wanted to know more about the villains and stuff like that. There's so much potential with each character. So we're definitely excited if there is more eventually.
We hope.
Yeah. Awesome.
And then John and I are playing around with something else, a different story. We'll see what happens with that one. We're at the very beginning of that. But again, a book that's really inspired by a lot of our influences right now and things that we're talking about and watching and reading. And, at the birth of any comic book, right, it's all kind of a crapshoot, right? It's just us talking about shit and saying that would be cool. This would totally work. Yeah. And then it really kind of comes down to does it work? We'll find out. So
that's fun.
We'll see.
All right. Well, so the book's available now. You can try and get it ordered at your local comic shop, or I think you can order from the website directly as well, right?
So it's in comic shops now. You can get it via, I think Dark Horse is selling it through their website, but you can just go into your local store and ask them for it. They'll get you a copy. It hits mass market on the 26th, so that is when it hits major bookstores, Amazon, Bookshop, and also when it hits Comixology.
Okay, so it is going to be available digitally as well, right?
Yeah. Okay. And digital is on the 26th.
Awesome. Great stuff. So how do people get into contact with you guys? You guys on social media, Facebook?
Yeah.
Where do people go to find you?
So I'm on everything. Facebook is kind of the one place that I'm a little bit more locked down, but Twitter and Instagram is totally fine. I'm on Twitter. Well, this week I've been on Twitter probably more than most, but that's kind of the best place to get, I think, both of us, right, John?
Yeah. For me, Instagram, mostly on Instagram. You can contact me through Facebook. I'm always, checking Facebook, Twitter. I'm on Twitter. Twitter. I like to go on to just to get information on and check in on what everybody else is doing. Like I don't do a lot of posting on Twitter. I do a lot of retweeting because I'm lazy, and I see something really cool, and I'm like, oh, retweet. And
Twitter's for the writers.
Yeah, I want to see. Yeah, I want to see
the artists.
John spends half his time on Twitter reposting Ben Affleck memes. So those donuts, we love those donuts, right?
Yeah, it keeps dropping them, right? All right, guys. Well, this has been awesome. We hope everybody goes out there, picks up a copy of Savor. We've read it. It definitely has our endorsement. And we look forward to hearing more stuff from you guys. So thank you again, Neil and John, for joining Don't Feed the Geeks.
Thank you, guys. Can't wait for part 2.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
We just started following you.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, thank you so much to John and Neil for joining us. That was awesome.
That was a great interview. I mean, Neil, I like this guy, Neil, and I'm excited to get this book, hopefully Brownsville, soon, because I want to read it. It looked interesting when I read it. Read the little synopsis on it. Very excited.
Yeah, those guys are so fun to talk to.
John is always a character.
Yeah, you guys don't even know this, but we talked for at least like 20 more minutes after that.
Yeah, we did.
That's how we really enjoy talking with the guys.
Absolutely.
So, really hope that you guys go out there and pick up a copy of Savor. Even if you don't get it, if you're a digital person, it's going to be available digitally on the 20. Did they say the 26th or the 22nd?
26, I thought.
Yeah,
on Comixology, it'll be on there.
I really love this book. I mean, it's because it's outside of anything I usually read. I mean, it was such a pleasure to read. And it's
sometimes it's fun to read something like that.
It really is, especially in these times. But awesome.
And if you're local to Long Island, I believe John Broglia signed a bunch of copies at the Comic Book Depot. If you want to head over there
in Wonton. Yep. Very cool.
Awesome. All right, shall we move on to our review of Wonder Woman 1984, which I did not watch for this.
You're a punk.
Slacker.
I am a punk right now.
Call yourself a comic.
I was reading Savor instead.
Oh, excuses.
So, guys, what did you guys think of the movie?
JJ, why don't you start?
Listen. I mean, this movie has gotten a bad rap. I mean, I'm going to say there are more people who didn't like it, hated it, whatever it was. Me, it was a fun movie. It was okay. I'm not going to say it was a great movie. It wasn't one of the best DC movies because there really isn't too many best DC movies.
Your boy Aquaman holds that title, I think.
Say again?
Your boy Aquaman holds that title pretty high.
Well, the Aquaman movie was good. I like the Aquaman movie. Was it the best one? I don't think it was the best one. The first Wonder Woman is by far the best DC movie.
Man of Steel.
No?
Man of Steel is.
I can't stand
I'm not even. Was
that's
that
fine?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I can't stand Man of Steel, but we'll talk about that later.
Really? Oh, well, you're wrong then.
I liked the reason why I liked Wonder Woman the first one because it was different. We finally got a woman character. It was just I liked war. I liked the World War One.
Wonder Woman, the original one was fantastic. After she crosses no man's land, it was all downhill.
But Wonder Woman 84. Listen, would I pay money to go see this in the theater? No.
Really?
Yeah, I would. I think I would have been more disappointed if I paid money to see this in the theater.
But watching it for free at home feels a little different.
Well, I don't see it for free. I'm still paying for HBO Max, but being able to watch my own house, I mean, that's a bonus, and I love being able to do that. Would I paid? Would I rented? For $10? Yeah, probably rented for $10 for my whole family to see it. But going to a theater, going through all that trouble, I think I would have been disappointed. But it was an okay movie. I enjoyed it. It was something different. It changed the whole monotony of what's going on in the world. So,
how was the acting?
I'm a big Gal Gadot fan. I love Gal Gadot. She's just a beautiful woman. She's a beautiful, Wonder Woman. I liked part of the story. I think having two villains in this movie. So we had two villains. One was the cheetah chick played by
Kristen Wiig.
Yeah, Kristen Wiig.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to have been more. And then the other one was what's his name? Pedro Pascal. He was a villain.
With him now.
I think if we didn't have him as a villain, it probably would have been a little bit better movie.
Really?
I think so. The movie didn't make sense. It didn't make sense with his villain. I mean, it was all based on wishes and everything else. Like it was very and I've used this word a lot. It was hokey to me. A lot of things just didn't make sense. It was a lot of drag parts. I mean, I think, and I'm rambling here, but I think if it was 45 minutes shorter, it would have been a lot better too. I think a lot of parts dragged on, but I like Kristen Wiig. I mean, I think if it was just focused on her character, her villain, I think I would have liked it more. Having the two villain mesh up, it ruins movies because you're trying to focus on something and you got two things going on.
Yeah,
I understand that they're trying to create a backstory for her, but that wasn't really the real backstory anyway of that character in the comics.
Really.
So, a lot of hit and misses. Them bringing back Chris Pine and the way it was done, they should have cut that all out. They should have never brought him back.
So was he a major character in this movie?
He was
Yeah.
secondary major character. I would classify it as, but he wasn't really him. Like it was a very weird invasion of body snatcher.
Yeah.
If they should have left him out, there was no need to bring him back. And I'm hearing that he may be brought back in the third one, which, again, they should not do that. Leave him dead. I mean,
it was just to kind of add to what he said. It was just all really weird. So the worst part, this is probably the worst part of Pedro Pascal's year, pretty much considering like how well he's done with Mandalorian. It was just the character was poorly developed. Listen, Gal Gadot do okay, yeah, but it was just she didn't really have much to work with. Listen, I like her. I don't love her. Like she's not going to carry a movie on her own. I think she's good in an ensemble, like giving a couple of lines. I thought she was really good in Justice League. I think, as a secondary character, she did really well. Even like most of her scenes with Chris Pine, I mean, Chris Pine's clearly the more seasoned actor, so he almost kind of like has to carry a lot of those scenes, and like he's taking on the acting chops. But again, like how JJ said, like the whole way they bring him back is weird. Like he's not really back. He's in somebody else's body, but his like soul or whatever is there. But Diana sees, Chris Pine, even though it's not really Chris Pine. The whole Pedro Pascal villain, it's just poorly developed. I don't know anything about the background of that character in comics. I'm assuming it's a comic book villain, but
I didn't even look it up. I should have looked it up because I don't. It was weird.
I mean, I did like Kristen Wiig. I thought like the beginning of the movie again. Like I probably liked the first quarter of the movie, and then it just started getting really weird, and like it just kind of got out of control. And even like the action scenes, they were just like
there wasn't many. There was not much.
Really like blow my socks off kind of thing. And it was, people are always like, they want to do all this, I'm all for the diversity and stuff like that. I totally think we should have more female superheroes and stuff like that. But, people are singing Patty Jenkins praises, and I don't think it's deserved. I mean, listen, I was like, just because she's a woman and she made this movie, I think the first one was much better.
Did she make the first one too?
I believe so, yeah.
She did.
But I think she needs more help with this. I think you should pick the best people for the job, regardless of who they are. And listen, like, does Patty have, some say at this point? She absolutely should. But I think at this point, you may want to move on to somebody else who might have like a more experienced vision, or maybe like they can steer it in a more like coherent way. It was just, I don't know. It's a very like choppy movie for me.
She's coming back for the third, unfortunately.
Isn't she the one doing the Rogue Squadron movie?
She is. Yep. Yeah. Yep. And
listen, and it might not. It doesn't mean that she's not a good movie.
She may be fantastic on the Rogue Squadron.
This is a bad movie, yeah.
And again, she did a great job with the first Wonder Woman. It's just this one, the story. I think the story was just horribly written. I mean,
yeah, it might not be her issue. Maybe someone else wrote it. I really don't know.
But some of the like TC said, the beginning of it was fantastic. I love the shots of Themyscira. I love those scenes with training. They're doing all this. I mean, I like those scenes.
Yeah.
But then when you're back in the real world, now you're in 1884, and 1984. It was so weird. They're trying to push all this 80s stuff, and
which was cool, but then it's just like it falls like it's like it at some point it doesn't make sense like why they're doing it.
And unfortunately, like some of the shots, being a geek and being, I grew up in that era, especially like that arcade scene. Yeah. One of those arcades came out in 1987. This was supposed to be 19. So I picked up a few things like, what? Wait a minute. It's just, but besides that, I just wish they focused on one villain and went that direction.
I find that's often a problem with multiple villains.
And I think the problem was too is that it's hard to like have like Cheetah carry a whole movie also though. Like Cheetah's like you have to really get into like the story and then the friendship and then like it's hard to like sell that. Like that would be great as like a TV show episode to try and sell a movie where it's just Cheetah and there's really nothing else. I mean, they should have tried to have done something bigger than this guy. It was just
maybe his powers of granting wishes was just that's weird.
It was so weird, and I don't know. It was just not a fan. It's definitely in the bottom category. I wouldn't say it's the worst movie. I think third worst, maybe. I don't know.
And then you get into her partner, so now she can make things invisible. Like she made the jet go invisible. Like I didn't know that she had that power. Is that a new power? Because
I don't know. I think that was something made up.
It just there was a lot of things in it that was just I sat there going, what? And my wife loved it. And listen, I thought it was okay.
Steph stayed up through the whole thing, which I was surprised about. I mean, there was a lot of like I think there was supposed to be like a lot of like emotional ties and she was supposed to have her closure with him, and it's just I think there was a lot of mixed messages where they were trying to do a lot of things at once, and that's just the story with DC movies as usual. They're trying to check 20 boxes that Marvel will take 3 movies to do, and it's just more evidence of why they're poor at making these superhero movies. It has nothing to do with people being tired of the genre. It's that you're trying to jump 20 steps ahead before you do one solid box of work, and it's frustrating, really.
And, the other thing that I thought about too is at the end of this, the wish granter guy loses all his powers and everything tries to go back to normal. But I always try to think about when you're making a movie like this, what are the repercussions for the future? And we've already had a bunch of movies already, like Bruce Wayne. Like where was Bruce Wayne during this? Where was Clark during this? And I just, this is what things that I was thinking about watching this. Like, what was Bruce? What was his wish? Was his wish to get his parents back? Like, what were the repercussions?
I think they're supposed to have been like born in like 1980, right? So they might have not have been dead yet.
I don't know, but yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So what do you think on a grade?
Oh, I'm gonna give that a 3.0.
Oh wow. I actually thought it was probably like a 5. Like I think it was. It wasn't the worst thing I've seen, but again, like it was really messy. So I mean, I think there was, again, like some of the other movies, there was some cool parts of it and some decent acting. So I'll give some of it a 5. So
yeah,
that's fair.
Not highly recommended though.
Yeah,
not at all.
Another DC flop, in my opinion.
It's one of those movies I wouldn't watch again, and that's tough.
Yeah,
because I like watching movies over and over again.
I think there's really only 3 DC movies that I've had any interest in watching multiple times. It's Man of Steel, it's the first Wonder Woman I've seen a few times, and Aquaman, and that's really it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't hate Justice League. It's probably like the 4th on the list for me, but I mean, again, that's not saying it's mostly because the competition is so awful. I told you guys this, but I was rewatching some of the MCU movies. I think I made it through phase 2, and I was just like, again, after just seeing Wonder Woman, is it's the even the worst MCU movies are still probably top 3 for like a DC movie, which is just embarrassing. The Toy Story.
We lost Toy Story.
Great.
Where'd you go, Toy Story?
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully he comes back. What was I going to say? I lost my train of thought when he left. But but going back to that, so I mean, those MCUs, they've got Disney money, so they can throw a bunch of money into it.
And I was thinking about that too. Is like, is that just what it is? But they take the time to not only build the character but build the story too. They're not trying to get to the Avengers in Iron Man 1. They're setting it up. They're not throwing Thor, Captain America, and the Hulk in Iron Man 1. Like that's
right.
That's what these guys are trying to do. Batman versus Superman. Oh, by the way, it's Aquaman, it's the Flash, it's Wonder Woman. It's like, oh, Doomsday's in this too, and Lex Luthor. I'm just like act like you're gonna make more than one movie after this.
Right, right. What did you think of the CGI of Cheetah? I mean, it was
at
pretty
the end.
messy.
It looked pretty bad. Yeah,
messy.
I would have preferred if they didn't even go that route. If maybe they teased it for like another movie, if they would have just had her in like human form, I think that worked better. But listen, it is what it is.
I don't think we're gonna get Toy Story back.
Toy Story hated it so much he didn't even want to finish doing the podcast with us.
He's gone. He said, "Screw this."
It is what it is.
All right.
So that's it. Unfortunately, we didn't have like a year in review episode. We had some stuff going on. A lot of things have been going on. We haven't got to our book club review of Ready Player 2 either. Maybe we'll get to that. We don't know.
Yeah, we will.
So as always, you can reach us on Don't Feed the Geeks podcast on Instagram, and at LI Comic Guys on Instagram as well. We're also on Facebook, and hit us up. If you please make sure you're subscribing, you're hitting those like buttons, give us a review if you're looking on the podcast, and give us some feedback. Let us know what you guys want to hear about. Right now we're just doing whatever we want to do. So if you want to see something different, let us know. Otherwise, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And we appreciate all of you guys who are tuning in, all you loyal geek freaks out there. Oh, gosh, this guy.
He's back.
Yeah. But that's it. So until next time, remember.
Don't feed the geeks!